Hey guys, in this video I'm going through the Caringbah High School Year 12 2020 Standard Maths Trial Paper. It's a 2.5-hour exam with 15 marks and 15 questions allocated for multiple choice, and the remainder 85 marks are for your short answer responses. You're to give yourself about 25 to 30 minutes for multiple choice, and the remaining 2 hours 5 minutes for the short answer section. Okay, let's get into it. A couple of things before we get started. I do recommend that you have a pen that is coloured and can be actually rubbed out to take in with you in the exam. They come really in handy when we're doing the networks and critical path questions. It's just so that you can highlight the paths along the way. Please make sure that you're also marking in all the units. They can be quite picky if you're not carrying over your units in your working out. Make sure your writing is very clear and most importantly, make sure you always read that last sentence of a question, because it's there that they tell you how they want the answer to be provided, whether it's the 3 decimal places, in kilograms, in kilometers. Okay, so it usually gives you the unit that they're expecting, or how many decimal places they're after. All right, let's get into it. Multiple choice, question 1. What is the solution of the equation 2x minus 6 over 4 equals 3 minus x? Okay, so on this side, the 4 is getting divided by, so when I bring it over to this side, it will multiply. So now I've got 2x minus 6 is equal to 4, open bracket, 3 minus x. I'm now going to expand this bracket, and we've got 2x minus 6 is equal to 12 minus 4x. I'm going to now bring all my x's to one side and my numbers over to the other. So this, I'll move over to here, and the minus 6, I'll move it over to the right hand side. In doing so, I now have 2x plus 4x, and that's equal to 12 plus 6. Okay, that leaves me with 6x is equal to 18. Divide both sides by 3, so x is equal to 3. A. Question 2. Lauren and Andy work in the same restaurant. They each earned $576 last week. Andy worked 4 more hours than Lauren and was paid time and a half for these extra hours. Okay, so for the 4 extra hours, he got time and a half. If Lauren is paid $16 an hour, find Andy's hourly pay rate. Okay, so let's first start with and find out how many hours Lauren worked. So for Lauren, she got paid $576, and she gets paid $16 an hour. So that leaves me with 36 hours. So Lauren worked 36, leaving Andy, and I'll use a different color, leaving Andy to work 40 hours. But of these 40 hours, remember 4 of them were at time and a half. So that means he worked 36 hours at a normal rate and 4 hours at time and a half, which is the equivalent of working 36 hours plus 4 times 1.5, and that's 42 hours. So even though he worked for 40 hours, it's the equivalent of working 42 hours at a normal rate. So now what I'll do, I'll just do it over here on the other side. So now I'm going to do 576 divided by 42. And you get $13.71. That's B. So his hourly rate is much less. Question 3. A football match begins at 8 p.m. local time in New York, which has coordinated universal time, so UTC of -5. Rowan lives in Perth, UTC +8. If he wants to watch the match, what time will he need to turn on his TV? So if, based on this point here, we've got New York is -5. I always like to see this visually, and you've got Perth is +8. So that means there is a total in between of 13 hours. So I can say that Perth is 13 hours ahead of New York, or New York is 13 hours behind. Now, if we are, what time we're 8 p.m. on a Friday in New York, so what time is that going to be in Perth? So if I have 8 p.m. Friday, New York, I need to add 13 hours to 8 p.m. I'm first going to add 12 hours. That gives me to 8 a.m. on a Saturday in Perth. And now another extra hour. That leaves me with 9 a.m. Saturday, D. Okay, the only reason why I added 12 is I just personally find it a bit easier. You could have straight away added the 13 yourself in the one step. I just like to break it down. Okay, question 4. At a party, Charlotte begins drinking at 6:45 and has 7 standard drinks before she stops drinking at 11:15. If Charlotte has a weight of 58 kilos, calculate her blood alcohol content to 3 decimal places. Okay, I'm first going to fill out the following. So we've got N is the number of standard of drinks. Now this formula here, you should be familiar with it. I'm sure you would have seen it many times before. It's always provided for you in the questions. Let's fill it out. So we've got the number of standard of drinks. How many standard drinks did she have? She had 7. Hours of drinking. Now she drank between 6:45 p.m. and 11:15 p.m. That is 4.5 hours. And her mass is 58 kilos. So this is relatively straightforward. I'm just going to plug it in on the calculator. So that is 10 times 7 minus 7.5 times 4 all over 5.5 times 58. Plug that in on your calculator and you get D. Okay, question 5. Calculate the interquartile range for the data set. Now, because the data set is relatively small, I can just cross off the ends. You can see here, my median is here. Okay, and so if I wanted to find my upper quartile, my lower quartile, it's 31, and for your upper quartile, it's 65. So for your interquartile range, which is Q3 minus Q1, that leaves me with 65 minus 31, and that is 34. So A. Elise is playing a chess tournament in which each match she plays, Elise has a 40% chance of winning. Which of the following calculates the probability that she will win exactly one of the next 2 matches? I'm going to represent this as a tree diagram just so you can see how we go about doing this. You could obviously just do this logically, in your head. If I want her to win exactly 1, then obviously I'm after the probability of her winning and then losing, and the probability of her losing and then winning. Okay, there is no other outcome. But I will show you that on a tree diagram. So in her first match, she could either win or lose. And she has a 40% chance of winning. So I'm going to put that in decimal form, 0.4. And so a 60% chance of losing, that's 0.6. That's her first round. Now remember, your branches in a tree diagram must add up to 1. And you can see that 0.4 plus 0.6 is 1. Now for her second round, she could win or lose, win or lose. Once again, her probability of winning or losing even in a second round doesn't change. So it's still 0.4, 0.6 for losing, 0.4 for winning, 0.6 for losing. So look at all the possible outcomes. She could win both games. She could win then lose. She can lose then win, or lose, lose. I am after these 2 outcomes. Okay, so there. And how about I do a different color, or this and that? Okay, so the probability of winning losing plus the probability of losing winning looks like this. It is 0.4 times 0.6 plus 0.6 times 0.4. Now let's have a look and see which ones look like that. It's definitely not A, and it's definitely not B. Now C, 0.4 times 0.6 squared, this means that it's going to be 0.4 times 0.6 times 0.4 times 0.6. That is not what's happening here. They are being added together. And can you see that both of these are going to give the same answer? So it is D, 2 lots of 0.4 times 0.6. Question 7. A network of 4 points A, B, C, D is drawn below. Which of the following is not an equivalent graph of the network above? Okay, let's have a look and see which ones are not equivalent. So let's have a look at vertex A. If I'm at vertex A, it connects to B. Let's see with this one here, A. Oh, cool, it also connects to B. This A also connects to C. Yep, that happens there. This A connects with D. Yep. This C connects with D. Yep. And this B connects with C. Yep. And B connects with D. Beautiful. Okay, so it's definitely not A. Let's try B. This I have the luxury of rubbing it out, and that's what I mean by in the exam it's good to have those colored pens. Again, I just think color is better than your lead pencil, so that you can rub them out, and then obviously you'd go back to using your actual pen to doing the remainder of the exam, because I don't actually let you use those pens in the exam. Question B. Okay, A connects with C. Already I can see A does not connect with C at all. Looks like it's B. Because it's multiple choice, I can stop there. I personally prefer that we actually do go ahead and just make sure, because you never know if we've actually made a silly mistake, and then if you're stuck with two not being equivalent, it helps you go back and check your working and see which one it actually is. But I can confirm that in this one it is B. Question 8. The graph shows the growth of a $20,000 investment over a 6-year period. What was the annual rate of interest paid on the investment? Now it's a straight line, okay? So this means, it's flat rate. What that means is every year it grew by the same amount of money, okay? So it grew from 29,000 to 20,000. So let's find out how much the growth is. So that's 29,000, take away 20,000, which is $9,000, and it grew that over 6 years. So each year it must have grown 9,000 divided by 6, which is $1,500. Yep, $1,500. Putting this amount over what it was originally to find out what the annual, or to find out what the rate is, and we get 1,500 over 20,000, times it by 100, and you get 7.5%. Question 9. Based on the equation P is equal to 36 over Q squared, which of the following correctly expresses Q as a subject of the equation? Okay, P is equal to 36 over Q squared. I'm first going to bring this Q square up to here. So on the right hand side it's being divided by, so on the left hand side it will multiply. So now I've got P Q squared is equal to 36. Now I want to get Q on its own. Actually, I'll get Q squared on its own, so I'll divide both sides by P. So now I have Q squared is equal to 36 over P. How do I get Q on its own? I will have to find the square root. So it's Q is equal to the plus minus square root of 36 over P. Now let's have a look at what options I've got. It's definitely not B. Do you see how this answer is actually 36 over P, but it's meant to be the square root? And it's definitely not D either. Now, what makes A and C different? We've got A is equal to 6 over P. Well, that can't be, because this P needs to be square rooted. So it's not A, leaving me with C. And again, how they ended up getting that is I can actually find out what the square root of 36 is. So Q is equal to plus minus 6 over square root of P. Now this plus minus could either be in your numerator or your denominator, and it would represent the same thing. So that's why C is the answer. Question 10. A 400 watt desktop computer is run on average for 4 hours a day. If electricity is charged at 18 cents per kilowatt hour, calculate the electricity cost of running the computer per year. Okay, so we've got 400 watts. So let's find out the consumption. Got 400 watts, 4 hours a day for 365 days in the year, and that is 584,000 watts. But I get charged at kilowatts, so I need to convert this now to kilowatts. I need to divide by 1,000, and that leaves me with 584 kilowatts. So then how much I'd get charged is 18 cents times 584, and that leaves me with $105.12. B. Now, very sneaky, they've put D here as an answer, assuming, some of the students may not have converted this to kilowatts. Okay, but I just want you to take a moment and reflect. If you did get something like $105,000, just think about how logical that is to have a computer on for 4 hours a day over the year and it costing you over $100,000. Okay, it's not very feasible, right? You'd go off and you'd buy put that down as a deposit for a house as opposed to running a computer for a few hours a day. So just try and use logic as well when you come across answers that don't really make sense. It most likely is you've made an error. A university exam has its marks normally distributed with a mean of 70 and a standard deviation of 8. What percentage of students scored between 78 and 94? So I'm going to first draw a bell curve. And my average here is 70, and I'm going up by 8. So then we've got 78, 86, 94. And obviously we have and so on. I'm not quite really concerned with those ones there because the questions asked me to find the percentage of scores between 78 and 94. So between 78 and 94 are those marks here. Now, on your reference sheet, I know that if I'm 1 standard deviation away, that's 68% of my scores. If I'm 2 standard deviations away, it's 95% of my scores. And if I'm 3 standard deviations away, it's 99.7% of my scores. I want this blue section here, okay, and this score of 94 goes up to 3 standard deviations. How am I better break this down? This score here is 3 standard deviation, this score here is your 2 standard deviations, and this score is 1 standard deviation. Okay, so 94 is 3 standard deviations away, 86 is 2 standard deviations away, and 78 is 1 standard deviation away. I know that up to 3 standard deviations on the right hand side, my scores are, the percentage of scores is 99.7 over 2. But that would include, and pay attention to this, that would include all of that purple area. So the purple is 99.7 over 2. But I don't want all that purple, I want the blue, so I would need to do purple, take away this white section here. Okay, let's color that pink. And that little pink squiggly part is 34%. So then all you need to do is 99.7 over 2, take away 34% to give you the blue part, and that is 15.85%. Question 12. Jane purchases 2,400 bank shares at a cost of $19.50 a share. He was paid a dividend yield of 5.5% on his share, and then he sold them for $20 a share. Given there was 0 brokerage fees, calculate his profit. Okay, let's find out first how much it cost him to purchase these stock. $19.50 times 2,400 shares. It cost him $46,800. He then actually made some money off it. He was paid a dividend yield of 5.5%. So he got 5.5% of $46,800. Sorry. And that is $2,574. He then sold them for $20, and that's 2,400 shares, and that is $48,000. Now his profit, if we want to calculate what his profit is, it is not just 48,000 minus 46,800, and you'll notice 48,000 minus 46,800, well, this is actually lucky. They don't give it to you as an option. Usually, you know, the questions are quite sneaky and they will put that as one of your options here. But that's $1,200. But my total profit is the difference between these two plus the money I made. Okay, while I held on to the stock, I made $2,574. And so therefore my total profit is $3,774. Question 13. Two friends share a secret on Monday, which is day 1, and promise not to tell anyone. Unfortunately, Tuesday, day 2, they both individually tell 3 friends, and on Wednesday, these friends each tell 3 more friends. This is such a surprise, and the secret continues to spread. The spread of the secret can be modeled with the equation y is equal to 3 to the power of x minus 1, where x is the number of the day on which the secret is told. Y is the total number of people who know the secret. Well, let's just test this out, okay? For day 1, 2 friends were sharing a secret, right? Let's sub that in. Y is equal to 3 to the power of 1 minus 1, which is 3 minus 1, which is 2. Cool, so that equation does work. Anyway, we could test it for day 2 but let's just leave it at that for now. The question now is asking how many people were told the secret on the following Monday. Now the following Monday makes that day 8. So all you need to simply do is sub that in. So you've got y is equal to 3 to the power of 8 minus 1, which makes it 6,560 people. To keep something secret, okay? Do you see just in a matter of just over a week how it could spread to over 6,000 people? Okay. Question 14. A collection of bushwalking tracks is modelled by the network below. There are 6 lookout points labelled A, B, C, D, E, and F. Which 2 edges should be removed so that the bushwalker can walk along every track exactly once and still visit every lookout? Alright, so if I were to remove... Let's just do this by process of elimination, A, B, and B, E. If I were to say A, B, and B, E, what was it? So I walk along every track exactly once, and I can still visit every lookout. Well, if I were to do... Yep, that works. Okay, so it's A. Alright guys, so on to section 2, the short answer part. Question 16, a semicircular archway has been built and the front face is shown below. Find the perimeter of the archway to 1 decimal place. So what I've got is I have that semicircle. I also have this little semicircle here, and I've got these 2 little purple edges. So I need to add all of those up to find out what my perimeter is. And if you remember, your circumference of a circle is 2 pi r or pi d. So if I want to find out the perimeter of a semicircle, I'm obviously only going to use half of that. So I've got the circumference perimeter is equal to, you know, I'll color coordinate this, 2 times 1.2 plus half times pi times 2.4. Okay, so for the blue part here, my diameter is 2.4, so I'm using this formula here, pi d, and half of that, plus half, again the half is for the semicircle, times pi times, and the diameter for this one is going all the way across, so 1.2 plus 1.2 plus 2.4, which is 4.8. Plug that all onto your calculator and to the nearest one decimal place, you get 13.7 meters. Question 17. If A is equal to 3, B is equal to -1, C is equal to -1, find the value of this. Now this is just straight substitution. So if I already have B as a negative term, if I wanted to find negative B, that would be positive. Okay, so it's going to be 4 plus the square root of -4 all squared minus 4 times 3 times 1 all over 2 times 3. Now you will notice I put brackets around -4 squared, around -4. The reason is -4 squared on your calculator like this would give me 16, but on your calculator, if you wrote it like this, it would compute it as -16. So a common mistake in this type of question is if you don't put in your brackets. So be careful, put your brackets in and you get 4 plus 2 over 6, which is 1. Question 18. 19 people had their heart rate measured in beats per minute, both before and after exercise, before an exercise class. Okay, by how many beats per minute did the median heart rate increase after exercise? Okay, so I'm concerned with this section here. I know that there were 19 people, so if I wanted to find the median, I simply do n plus 1 divided by 2, so 19 plus 1 divided by 2, which is 20 over 2, so 10. What that means is 10 isn't the median, my 10th term is the median. Okay, so let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so that's my median there, and I want to compare it to before exercise because I'm trying to compare the two. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And so now I've got the median of before exercise was 76 and after exercise is 98. So by how many beats per minute did it increase? So I need to do 98, take away 76, and that gives me 22. Now it's asking to calculate the interquartile range after exercise. Okay, so again, just dealing with this side here. If I want to find the interquartile range, I need to determine Q1 and Q3. So for my lower quartile, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, that term here, halfway. And on the other side, 1, 2, 3, 4, that one here. Okay, so we've got Q1 is 90, Q3 is 104. So for your interquartile range, you would get 104 take away 90, and that is 14. Question C. Is 146 an outlier? Now in order to determine an outlier, it's going to be Q3 plus 1.5 times your interquartile range. Okay, I'm going to use that, so, and if it is greater than this value, then it is an outlier. If it is below, then it is not. So let's test this out. I have 104 plus 1.5 times times 14. And that's all equal to 125. So since, and you need to make this statement, since 146 is greater than 125, therefore it is an outlier. Okay, it is really important that you actually mention this. Okay, that part here. Describe the skewness of the data after exercise. Is it positive, negative, or symmetrical? Now I'm looking at after exercise. Let's rub all of this out. As you can tell, it definitely doesn't look symmetrical. Okay, so it doesn't look like I have an even number up here and an even number down here. That doesn't look like the case at all. In fact, it looks like I have more values at the top here in my top part of my scores as I do to the bottom. So that means it is more heavy to the left. So that way it is, therefore it is positively skewed. Okay, if you had more terms here to the left than you do as you go along, so as your terms increase, okay, if your terms are more heavy in the lower end, then it is positively skewed. If it's something like this, okay, then it is negatively skewed. So this one is for negatively skewness, positively skewed. Question 19. A car is traveling at a constant speed of 75 kilometers an hour. At this speed, the car uses 8.125 liters for every 100 kilometers it travels. Okay, that's very straightforward. If the petrol tank holds 65 liters of petrol, how far can the car travel on one tank of petrol while, traveling at 75 kilometers an hour? Well, let's first find out how many lots of 100 kilos I can travel. So I have 65 liters in my tank. Let's divide that by 8.125 and you get 8. That means I can travel 8 lots of 100 kilometers. Okay, so therefore it's 8 times 100. So I can travel 800 kilometers on a 65 liter tank. Question B. If petrol costs 119.9 cents a litre, how much will it cost to travel 300 kilometres? Okay, so once again, I know I consume 8.125 litres for every 100 kilometres. Okay, so that means I'm going to use 8.125 times 3. I'll need 3 lots of those, and then to find the cost of that, I'll just multiply it by 119.9 cents. I'm going to straight away convert this to dollars, so times it by $1.19 or 1.199, and that gives me $29.23. When the speed of the car is 110 kilometers per hour, the petrol consumption is increased by 20%. How much petrol will be used to travel 200 kilometers but at the speed of 110 k's an hour? So I'm going to first increase my petrol consumption. Once again, I know I use 125 liters for every 100 kilometers, but in this case, if I'm traveling at 110 kilometers an hour, that's going to increase by 20%. So why I've written 1.2 here is, don't you agree, if I increase something by 20%, it is now 120%, and so this is 1.2. Okay, and then I'm traveling for 200 kilometers, remembering this 8.125 liters is for every 100, so because I'm traveling 200 kilometers, multiply that by 2, and you get 19.5 liters. Question 20. In a normal distribution of scores, 50 people have a z-score which is greater than 2. How many people are in this population? So, drawing out here your little normal distribution curve, if that's your mean, 1, 2, it's asking for a z-score greater than 2. So that means, just write these out in terms of z-scores. Okay, so that means I only am concerned with this section here. So everything from 2 onwards. Okay, it's not limited between 2 and 3, from 2 and onwards. Now I know up to 2 standard deviation, it makes up 95% of the scores. Okay, so that means 5% of the scores lie outside of that. Outside of this, so that purple and blue section makes up 5%. By the way, you don't have to provide this explanation obviously in the exam. I'm just explaining it to you. So how about I rub this off just so you don't get confused. Okay, so therefore 50 people have a z-score that is greater than 2, so that means 50 people make up 2.5% of the population. In order to find out what 100% is, I'm going to do the unitary method. So I would first divide by 2.5, and you would get 1% is equal to 20 people. So I've divided both sides by 2.5 to get it to 1%. Again, I'm using the unitary method. Now to get this to 100%, I will multiply both sides by 100, and you get 2,000 people make up the 100%. Okay, so therefore 2,000 people make up the population. Question 21. The heights of Alex and Barry are in the ratio of 5 to 4, whilst the heights of Barry and Chris are in the ratio of 6 to 5. So I've got Alex to Barry is 5 to 4. And what do I have? Barry to Chris is 6 to 5. I want to join these two ratios together. So what I will do is I will find a common multiple for my Barry ratios. Okay, get them to the same get them to the same number, and then respectively change my Alex part and change my Chris part. So I can see a common multiple, well, the smallest one here would be 12. So if I've got Barry, if I write it in this form, if I change this to 12, that means for this to become 12, I multiplied by 3, so this side must multiply by 3, so this becomes 15. And on this side, for this to become 12, I multiplied by 2, so over here I multiply by 2. So it's 10. So my ratio is 15 to 12 to 10 if all three were put together. Now I know that altogether these parts of 15 plus 12 plus 10 parts, which makes up 37 parts, gives me a combined height of 4.44 meters. So in order to determine one part, what that is worth, I will do 4.44 meters divided by 37, and I get 0.12 meters. But the question is asking for find Barry's height. Now Barry makes up 12 of those parts. So for Barry's height, you would get 0.12 times 12, which is 1.44 meters. Okay. Question 22. From a recreational area R, a lake A is 220 meters away. Oh, they've marked this wrong. Okay, I don't have any notes, from this paper, to say, that amendments were actually made, in the exam, but I'm sure it would have been brought to their attention, or they would have mentioned it to the students. I think here is meant to be A, and this is meant to be B, because I've got it's 220 meters away. By the way, you would notice that I like to, as I read the question, make sure it's been marked off on the diagram, because so many times it does happen that there is information in the question not represented in the diagram. Okay, so I've got it's 220 meters away on a bearing of 55. Beautiful, that's been marked. Whilst Lake B is 50 meters away on a bearing of 295. There you go. I don't have that bearing drawn there on the diagram, as shown in the diagram below. So had I not read this, because it is very common for students to just look, oh, okay, a diagram's been provided, I will just jump to part A, find the sides of angle ARB, and I'd be stuck. I wouldn't have enough information to determine that, and then you think, oh, sorted, I'm just going to move on, and then you lose, look, potential 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 marks. Okay, so please be extra careful. I've got here the bearing is 295, so that is 295 degrees, leaving this here to be 65 degrees. Okay, because obviously a full revolution will be 360. So I know angle, and this question he's asking me to find angle ARB. So I know angle NRB is equal to 65 degrees, and you could say angle of revolution is 360 degrees. And then I've got angle ARB is equal to 65 plus 55, and that is 120 degrees. Cool. Now it's asking to calculate the length between the two lakes. So once this length here, looking at that, I'm going to use the cosine rule. Okay, do you see how I have an angle and two sides bound by that angle? Okay, and then the side that I'm after is opposite to it. So it's AB squared is equal to 50 squared plus 220 squared minus 2 times 50 times 220 cos 120. Plug that all in on your calculator and you get 61,900. And then to get AB on its own, I'm going to have to square root that. And to the nearest whole number, let's check that on the calculator, and that rounds to 249 meters. Okay, part C, using the sine rule in your working, find the bearing of A from B. Okay, this is worth 3 marks. So I'm going to draw my little, I'll just get rid of these colours. I'll just draw. Okay, so I want to find out what that bearing is here. Okay, I first know, I can tell that, I'll choose another color, sorry. Okay, so you can see there's alternate angles here, so that leaves me with 65 degrees there. I'll just make that a bit neater. So sorry, hang on, let's just tidy that up. So I've got 65 degrees over here, okay, for alternate angles. What else can I gather? You know what I'm going to do is I will find out what this angle here is in purple. So I'll find out the angle of the triangle in there. So angle ABR, I'm going to let it be theta. I'm going to find out what that angle is, and then can you see how I would then have the supplementary angle? Okay, so I'm going over that in bold. I'll have supplementary angles where I can find out what that pink angle is. That pink angle here is the bearing that I am after. Okay, so I've got 65 degrees in the blue. I'll find out what theta is, which is the angle that makes up an angle in the triangle, and then I would add those two up and subtract it from 180 degrees. So letting angle ABR equal to theta, let's have a look. I've got now sine theta over, and what is it, across 220 is equal to sine 120 over 249. Yeah, so sine theta is equal to 220 sine 120 over 249. So this 220 on the left hand side here is being divided by on the left hand side, so on the right hand side it will multiply as it comes up. Plug that in onto your calculator, find the inverse, and you get, alright, that's that there on the calculator. I need it to the nearest degree, so that's 50 degrees to the nearest degree. So therefore your bearing is going to be 180 minus 50 plus 65 degrees, which is 65 degrees. Now, if you left your answer like this, you would get it wrong. I need to keep it in bearing form. Okay, so as a true bearing, put a 0, 65 degrees, true. Okay, don't forget that. You could even leave it in compass bearing as well. I personally just prefer true bearing, but you can pick whatever you want. But leaving your answer like this would not give you the mark, so be careful. And then finally for part D, find the area of the triangle ARB. Well, that's really straightforward. I just need to use the formula half AB sine C. Like I said, I've got these two sides and angle bounds in the middle. I'll just use those ones again. So for your area, it's half AB sine C, which is half times 220 times 50 times sine 120. Plug it in on your calculator and want it to one decimal place, so that's 4,763.1 square meters. Question 23. Liam purchases a lawnmower on his credit card on the 6th of August. The lawnmower cost $2,300. I'm just going to write this down. $2,300 on the 6th of August. On the 18th of August, he then purchases a whippersnipper for $900. Okay, $900. When? On the 18th of August. He makes no other purchases on his card and is charged at 19% per annum compounded daily, including, this is really important, so it includes the day of the purchase and the day of the payment, with no interest-free period. If he repays the full amount on the 5th of September, how much will he pay in total? Well, let's first determine from the 6th of August to the 5th of September, including the 6th and including the 5th, how many days are there? There are 31. Okay, and then for the 18th of August to the 5th of September, once again, including the 18th and including the 5th, how many days are there? There are 19. Okay, now what I'll do, it's compound interest, so I'm going to use the formula, my future value is equal to your present value, 1 plus r to the power of n. But my rate, which sits at 19% per annum, I need to change it to a daily rate. So I'm just going to leave it in fraction form and plug literally 19 over 365% on my calculator. Okay, so that's really straightforward. What was I going to say? Okay, so now I'll use this, but I am not going to add these two figures together. and then say put it to the power of 31. I'm going to be doing each calculation separately because your $2,300 is going to go through 31 cycles of interest, whereas your $900 is going to go through 19 cycles. So let's separate this. So therefore the total amount that you would have to pay back is your $2,300, 1 plus 19 over 365% to the power of 31 plus 900. Slap it with interest, 19 over 365% to the power of 19. Okay, so do you see how I've done each one separately? Okay, add them together and you get $3,246.35. Question 24. On Billy's property, there is a lake with dimensions shown in the diagram. Calculate the estimate of the area for the area of the lake using the trapezoidal rule. Okay, so I'll break this up into two. So I've got area 1, and area 2. So I'll just put them together using my trapezoidal rule formula. My area, the approximate area, is, and by the way, my height in this case is 10. Can you see that of each subinterval it's 10 meters? So it's going to be 10 over 2, 8 plus 12, plus 10 over 2, 12 plus 4. Plug that all in onto your calculator and you get 180 square meters. Part B, if the entire lake has a depth of 95 centimeters, calculate the capacity of the lake in liters. Okay, so I'm going to have to approach this as a volume question where we know the volume is your cross-sectional area times the height. So I already have the cross-sectional area of this lake, and it's 180 square meters, and the height is 95 centimeters. Now, a common mistake most people make is they would multiply this by 95, which is incorrect because 180 is in square meters and 95 is in centimeters. So I must make sure I convert it to the same units. So it's 0.95. Okay, and that leaves me with 171 cubic meters. Now the question is asking for capacity in liters, and we know that 1 cubic meter is made up of 1,000 liters. So therefore, if I have 171 cubic meters, I simply need to multiply it by 1,000, and you get 171,000 liters. Right, question 25, solve the equation. Okay, so just be very careful with this one. Make sure you are moving the signs across from one side to the next correctly. Take your time. I'm first going to expand this bracket, and I've got 5y plus 6y minus 3y is equal to 2y over 3 plus 12. I'm now going to, 5y plus 6 minus 3y is equal to 2y over 3 plus 12. I'm now going to join these two together, collect these like terms. That's 2y plus 6 is equal to 2y over 3 plus 12. I'm going to subtract both sides by 12, so bringing that 12 across, or subtracting both sides by 12, however you like to interpret it. That's 2y minus 6 is equal to 2y over 3. We'll have to multiply out this 3. So this is 3, open bracket, 2y minus 6 is equal to 2y, which is 6y minus 18 is equal to 2y. So that's 4y is equal to 18, y is equal to 4.5. Okay, in question 26, this is a square-based pyramid. The side lengths of the square are 24 centimeters. The perpendicular height of the pyramid is h, so it's that there. The volume is 3,072 cubic centimeters. Find the value of h. Well, for the volume of a pyramid, it's 1/3 times A times. Okay, well, we know that the volume is 3,072. So 3,072 is equal to 1/3 times. Now, this area represents the base, area of the base. And so that is 24 times 24 times the height, which is what we are trying to determine. So we get 3,072 is equal to 192h when you plug that into your calculator. To get h on its own, I'm going to divide both sides by 192. So therefore, h is equal to 16 centimeters. Part B. Using your answer from part A, find the surface area of the pyramid. Okay, now this is worth 3 marks. So it does require, it's not extremely difficult, but a common mistake here is most students are going to assume that the height here in pink is actually the height of these triangles. Okay, so I've got 4 of those triangles that I've highlighted in blue. I've got 4 of them, and in order to find the area of those, I need to do half times base, times height. Okay, but this height is not the same as that one. The perpendicular height that I'm concerned with in that blue triangle is that purple line here. Okay, and that's where most students are going to make a mistake here. And in order to determine this, can you see this? Let me do another color. Let's say, can you see this triangle here? Okay, I don't know if that's too faint. How about I go for a darker color? Okay. All right, so that triangle here, see how it's comprised, it's made up of H, 12, and then that hypotenuse here is X. So in order to determine X, we've got H squared plus 12 squared is equal to X squared. And that is, what have I done? Oh, we know what H is, sorry. So 16 squared plus 12 squared is equal to X squared. Plug that into your calculator and find the square root. You get X is equal to 20. Okay, so now what I've got is that length, that height here is 20 units. My base is 24. So to find the area of one of those triangles, I'll just have to apply half times 24 times 20. I've got 4 lots of them. So for the surface area, I have 4 lots of those triangles times half times 24 times 20. Plus, I need to add the base, so 24 by 24. This question is not difficult. Okay, so I know it's worth 3 marks. It's not difficult, but it's just about interpreting that I actually do need to find another perpendicular height. Anyway, plugging that all into your calculator and you get 1,536 square centimeters. Question 27, it's an annuity. We've got the table below is used by the Commonwealth Bank to calculate home loan repayments. A bank will not allow a customer to borrow if the repayments are more than 30% of the person's gross wage. Show with calculations that if Daniel earns $7,400 a month, he will be able to borrow $250,000 at 8.5% for 20 years. All right, let's have a look. So he wants 8.5% for 20 years. Okay, so let's go here. And 20 years. Okay, so we are after this amount, 8.68. So, and for $250,000. So if he were to borrow $250,000 at 8.5% for 20 years, his repayment will look like this. His repayment is going to be 8.68 times 250, because this table is an annuity. If I were to borrow $1,000, okay, so if I were to borrow $1,000 and I wanted to pay that back over 20 years at 8.5%, I'd have to pay back $8.68 a month. But if I'm borrowing $250,000, I need to multiply that amount by 250, and we get $2,170. Okay, I want to now find out. Now he earns $7,400 a month. He earns $7,400 a month. I need to know what 30% of his gross wage is. So 30% of the $7,400 is $2,220. Okay, now since 30% of his gross wage is higher than what the expected repayment is, he can borrow that loan. Okay, so banks always have to make sure that you are able to make your repayments. So in this case, this particular condition is, we just want to make sure that 30% of their gross wage is in fact higher than what the repayment is. So you would write here, since 2,220 is greater than 2,170, therefore Daniel can borrow $250,000. Now, I've seen students, just leave the answer like this, where they actually showed that the repayment was higher, but you needed to make the statement. The question is asking, will he be able to borrow? So you need to say, yes, he can, or no, he can't. Okay. Part B, calculate the amount of interest that Daniel will pay over the entirety of the loan. Well, I know he's going to pay back $2,170 a month. So he's going to pay this back every month over the year for 20 years. So he will pay, and then this total amount is $520,800. But remember, he's only borrowed $250,000. So the interest is going to be $520,800 minus $250,000, which is $270,800. Okay, so over 20 years, he's paid back an extra $270,800. Calculate the equivalent flat rate of interest as a percentage for Part C. Well, I know if it was a flat rate, so it's going to be I is equal to PRN. Okay, so we've got interest is $270,800. The rate is what I'm trying to figure out, and N is 20 years, and obviously your principal is $250,000. Okay, so let's sub all of that in. I've got $270,800 is equal to $250,000 times R, which is what I'm trying to determine, times 20. Now, $250,000 times 20, is equal to 5 million times R. I'm going to now bring that 5 million over to the other side and divide it out. And we get 0.05416 is equal to R. To get that as a percentage, I need to multiply it by 100, and you get 5.4%. The question wants it to one decimal place. Question 28. A fridge contains 12 cans of Pepsi and 3 cans of Coke. Okay, Carla takes 1 can from the fridge without looking, and then takes a second can without replacing the first. Draw a tree diagram to show the probabilities of all the outcomes. Okay, so for her first pick, she could either pick Pepsi or Coca-Cola. And then for her second pick, she could also pick Pepsi or Coca-Cola, Pepsi or Coca-Cola. Now I need to mark the probabilities against the branches. So we've got 12 Pepsi cans and 3 Coke cans to choose from in her first choice. So there is a 12 out of 15 chance of picking Pepsi and a 3 out of 15 chance of picking Coca-Cola. Okay, now for this scenario here, do you see how now that if she's already selected a Pepsi can, there are now 11 Pepsi cans to choose from, but there are still 3 Coca-Cola cans to choose from. So that leaves me with 11 out of 14 for Pepsi, 11 out of 14 chance for Pepsi and 3 out of 14 chance for Coca-Cola in this scenario. Now over here, I have still 12 Pepsi cans to choose from, but now only 2 Coca-Colas. So this outcome here is 12 out of 14 versus 2 out of 14. As a guide, just rub these out because they're not necessary. I was just putting them there for extra information for you. As a guide, your branches must add up to 1. So I can see here 11 out of 14 plus 3 out of 14 is 14 out of 14. So that's 1. Okay. So my outcomes are, I could have Pepsi. I also have Pepsi Coke, Coke Pepsi, or Coca-Cola Coca-Cola. So it's asking now, find the probability of at least 1 Coke. So that means it could be either this, or this outcome. Now I can find the probability of each of these 3 outcomes, or I can just find the probability of selecting Pepsi and subtracting it from 1, because remember, all the probabilities add up to 1. So I think that's the easier way to go about it. And the probability of Pepsi is 12 over 15 times 11 over 14. So the probability of at least 1 Coke, it will be 1 minus 12 out of 15 times 11 out of 14. Plug that into your calculator and you get 13 over 35. Question 29. The weight of a metallic ball is directly proportional to the cube of its radius. So let's write that down straight away. The weight of a metallic ball is directly proportional to the cube of its radius. Okay, so do you see I put that k there for my constant? So this can also be represented as this. All right, I've got a ball that has a radius of 2 and a weight of 78.96. I've been given a condition there. A ball has a radius of 2 and a weight of 78.96. By first finding the value of the constant k, calculate the radius of the ball that weighs 631.68 grams. Okay, so using our condition for when r is equal to 2, w is equal to 78.96, let's solve that. I've got 78.96 is equal to k times 2 cubed. That's 78.96 is equal to 8k. To get k on its own, I'm going to divide both sides by 8. So therefore, k is equal to 9.87. So now that I've got k, my equation reads w is equal to 9.87 r cubed. I now want to find out what the radius is when my weight is 631. So now when w is equal to 631.68 grams, let's find out what r is. So 631.68 is equal to 9.87 r cubed. Divide both sides by 9.87. Just write that down for you. Is equal to r cubed. Plug that into your calculator and you get 64 is equal to r cubed. It's a nice number. To get r on its own, I'm going to have to find the cube root. So r is equal to the cube root of 64, which is equal to 4 centimeters. Please do not forget the units. Question 30. The table below shows Lily's marks as well as the cohort's mean and standard deviation across science and English exams. In comparison to the cohort, which of the subjects did Lily perform best in? Justify your answer with relevant mathematical calculations. Let's find out what the Z-score, what her Z-scores are for each of the subjects, because our Z-score will determine which subject she performed better in. So for science, to find her Z-score, it's 86 minus 73 over 8. Remembering, let me pop it here. For your Z-score, it's x minus your average over your standard deviation, just as a guide there. And we get 1.625. And now for English, for her Z-score, it's 83 minus 74 over 5.5, which is 1.636. Which one did she perform better in? Well, she obviously did better in English, only by slightly, but it's still nevertheless a higher Z-score. Remember, the higher the Z-score, the further I am away from the average, so the better I have performed. And vice versa, the smaller my Z-score, that means the further away I am from my average, so therefore the poorer I performed. Okay, so in this case, we need to say Lily performed better in English since her Z-score is higher than that of science. Okay? Question 31. I've got another annuity question. This table shows the future value of a $1 annuity. Okay, so the question before, the table was determining what our repayments are. This one is now telling me what my future value is of an annuity. Remember, an annuity means it's a regular contributions made. Okay, so I've got, this is for a $1 annuity. Emily invests $550 into an account every 3 months, which has an interest rate of 6% per annum compounded quarterly. Wow. So find the future value of her investment after 6 years. Okay, so she is making contributions every 3 months, and her interest is getting charged quarterly. Beautiful. So this is quite straightforward. If my rate is 8% per annum, I need to change this to quarterly. So I'll need to divide it by 4, which brings it to 2% per quarter. Okay, this is where most students might make a silly mistake, where they may go to the 8% column and then they'd go across to the 6 years, and they will interpret their question based on that figure there, which is absolutely wrong. Because if I did that, that means I'm taking into account that my period is annual, yearly, and my interest rates are being charged annually. But in fact, my rate is getting charged quarterly, and so therefore, for your number of contributions, how many years is it happening over? Okay, it's happening over 6 years. It's 6 times 4, so 24. Makes quite the difference. So I need to go to 24. And do you see how sneaky they are? They actually give you a table that gives you the possibility of going across to 8% and 6 periods. Okay, so just be careful. What was I saying? So period of 24, and my rate is now 2%. Okay, so oopsie daisy. So I want that amount there. Okay, so therefore, and remember this is a $1 annuity, so the future value is going to be 550 times 30.4219. Plug that into your calculator and you get $16,732.05. Part B, Jay would like to have $40,000 for a home deposit in 3 years' time. Find the amount he will need to contribute to his account each year if the interest is at 4% per annum compounded annually. Okay, that's great. So this one is going to be 4% per annum over 3 years. Okay. So that's the intersection there. So really, I want to know what the amount is. What do I have to contribute? So in part A, I contributed $550 every month, every quarter. This time, I don't know what my contribution is. I'll let it be X. That gets multiplied by 3.1216. Okay, and I want it to equal to $40,000. Okay, so do you see how it's just the reverse of part A? Part A, I knew what my annuity was, and I had found the intersection, so I could find then the future value. This is what I ended up solving for. Now I actually have the future value. I know what that intersection is, and I want to find what my contribution is. So X is equal to 40,000 over 3.1216, which is equal to $12,813.94. Okay, and that makes sense. If over 3 years I want to save up $40,000, well then yeah, it does look like I'll need to make a contribution of about almost $13,000, and over those 3 years it will also accrue some interest to reach 40 grand. Okay, so this is how you can think about the question to see if it actually makes sense. Question 32, in the following triangle, find the angle of theta to the nearest minute. Note that the triangle is an obtuse triangle. Okay, so we've been told, they're telling us that theta is obtuse, so we have to keep that in mind. What do we have? Okay, well, this is relatively straightforward to solve. I'm going to use the sine rule. Do you see how I have that known pair? And then I have that half pair here, so it's going to be 25. Actually, I'll put the angles on top. So sine theta over 54.1 is equal to sine 23 degrees 37 minutes all over 25. Okay, sine theta is equal to 54.1 sine 23 degrees 37 minutes over 25. Plug that into your calculator, and then find the inverse of sine, and you get 60 degrees and 6 minutes. Now, this is where some students may accidentally forget what that purpose of the question is it wants the obtuse angle. This is why it's always good to go back and read that last line of the question. It wants the obtuse, so I need to find, therefore theta is equal to 180 minus 60 degrees 6 minutes, which is 119 degrees 54 minutes. Okay, so At standard level, you just need to understand that in order to find the obtuse, you just need to find that supplementary angle. Okay? Because for sine, for the ratio of sine, in trig ratios, the obtuse angle and the acute angle both give positive outcomes. So this is why we can just simply do 180 minus the angle. Okay, question 33. The network shows the distance in kilometers between certain English towns. What is the degree of the vertex at Middlesbrough? Okay, let's find it. Let's here. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, probably the easiest marks there in the test. Okay, let's rub that out. Iris lives in Penrith. Yep. Iris lives in Penrith. She's going to pick up her friend in Newcastle and then drive to Leeds. Leeds. Yeah. Find the shortest path and distance to complete her trip. Have a look at this. To get from Penrith to Newcastle, that directly is 76 kilometers. Let's see if there is a shorter distance. Like, the shortest one coming out of Penrith is 56. What's 56 plus 13? Well, that's 69. So that's definitely shorter than going across 72. So I'm definitely going to do that path because I need to do that first. So I'm definitely going to go Penrith to Durham and then to Newcastle. Now I need to go to Leeds. Okay, Leeds. If I go 13, and then that only gives me, then I could go 20 and 31, but have a look. I could probably do something even shorter. What if I went 12 and then 15? That's already shorter, that option. Okay, so let's actually highlight this. 12, 15, and then 31, 26. Let's see what we get here. 27, 58, 74. Okay, so that one is 74. Let me just try another one. What if we did... Now, coming down here, that does 27. So what if I actually do 13 and 20, which is actually 23. Okay, so that's already shorter. And then come down this path. Okay, so that's what it is. So we have to go from Penrith to Durham to Newcastle, then back to Durham, and then to Ripon. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, and then to Leeds. Add all those distances up together and you get 150 kilometers. Question 34. The table shows the results of a group of people to see how many push-ups and how many sit-ups they can do each minute. The value of the correlation coefficient R is 0.95. Explain what this means in the context of this data. Well, obviously, since it's 0.95, it's very close to 1, so it's a strong, and because it's a positive number, it's a strong positive correlation, which means the fitness level correlate between push-ups and sit-ups. Use your calculator to find the equation of the least squares line of best fit in the form of such. Round each number to one decimal place. Okay, so let's plug that all into the calculator. So we start off with 8, 10, 17, okay, then right, now after we've plugged that all in, our calculator actually can compute the values for the equation of the least squares line of best fit. It's in this form. I just need to find A and B and sub that into the equation. So let's first find out what A is. Okay, so we go here, clear our data, shift 1, go to stat, then 5, select A, and we get 4.3, and then clear it again, do the same steps, select B, and we get 1.1. So now my equation is y is equal to 1.1x plus 4.3. All right, question C. If a person was able to perform 32 sit-ups, where sit-ups represents your y data, use the equation in part B to calculate the expected number of push-ups they perform. So now you've got 32 is equal to 1.1x plus 4.3. Let's take away 4.3 from both sides. So let's bring that over to here. So you get 27.7 is equal to 1.1x. Divide both sides by 1.1. You get x is equal to 25.18. So we'd say 25 push-ups, because it wants it to the nearest whole number. Alright, question 25. Screws are made in a factory by a machine. The lengths are normally distributed. The screws have a mean length of 4.5 centimeters and a standard deviation of 2.5 millimeters. Okay, there they go, straight away throwing us off. It may not seem like a throw off now, but maybe when you start drawing your normal distribution table, it could throw you off. We've got centimeters and millimeters, so just be careful. So this is the same as 0.25 centimeters. If a screw, part A, if a screw is less than 4 centimeters long or greater than 5.25 centimeters long, it will not be sold. If 6,000 screws are made a day, how many are able to be sold? So let's first start by drawing our normal distribution curve, where I've got my average is 4.5 and I'm going up by 0.25. So this is 4.75, 5.25, 4.25, 4, 3.75. Okay, so I do not want screws that are sold more than 5.25 or less than. So that means this side here is 2.5% of my scores, and over here it's 0.15% of my scores. Okay, so therefore total percent that can be sold is 100 minus 2.5 minus 0.15, which is 97.35%. So if I am producing 6,000 screws, so I can sell 6,000 of those times 6,000, so 97.35 of the 6,000, which is 5,841 screws. Okay, if you're wondering, how I got this 2.5%, this 4 is up to 2 standard deviations away, and we know if we're 2 standard deviations away, that makes up 95% of my score. So that means this here makes up 95% of the scores. So everything outside of it makes up the remaining 5%. But because I only want because I only want 1/2, it makes, this is 2.5 and that's 2.5. So that's how I got the left hand side. And then for the right hand side, the 0.15, 5.25 is more than 3 standard deviations away. So 1, 2, 3. So we want that little area here, and we know 3 standard deviations make up 99.7% of the scores, which means everything outside of that, so both of those shaded, make up 0.3% of the scores. So if I only want 1/2 of that, it's 0.15. Alright, part B, find the length of a screw that has a Z-score of minus 1.25 to 3 significant figures. Okay, so it wants 3 significant figures. I've got minus 1.25, let's pop it into my Z-score formula as x minus 4.5 over 0.25. Make sure you've got the units correct, they're both in centimeters. Now I've got minus 0.3125 is equal to x minus 4.5 at 4.5 to both sides, and you get 4.19 centimeters. Okay, because it wants 3 significant figures, that's that there. Question 36. A box contains 6 balls that are a mixture of red and pink, but they're not necessarily 3 reds, 3 pinks. Okay, so we can't make that assumption. Let R be the number of red balls in a box. When 2 balls are drawn randomly from the box, the probability that they are both red is 2/5. Show that. Okay, so if I have R red balls, that means I have 6 minus R pink balls. What that means is if I've got 2 red balls, that means I have 6 take away 2, which is 4 pink balls. If I have 5 red balls, that means I have 1 pink ball. And how I got the 1 is 6 minus 5. So if I wanted to find when 2 balls are drawn randomly from the box and they are both red, so the probability of a red is 2/5. So if I had to pick a red on the first go, there is an R out of 6 chance of picking it. Sorry, so this is now probability of red. That's on first selection. On second selection, I'm now down 1 red, but there are only 5 balls to choose from. So that's now R minus 1 over 5, and I know this is equal to 2/5. So now I do a bit of algebra here, and we get, just focus on the numerator, R minus 1, over 30 is equal to 2/5. I'm going to bring that 30 up, so now I have R minus 1 is equal to 30 times 2/5, which is 12, which is what is asked of us. Part B. So if you weren't able to show part A, you could definitely still attempt part B and get it right and get the correct answer. So it's saying, given the solution R squared minus R is equal to 12, is R equal 4? So that means, where there are 4 red balls. Determine the probability of randomly selecting 2 pink balls from the box. Hang on, I feel like I misread that. Given the solution to this, so given the solution to this equation is R is equal to 4, which means that there are 4 red balls, determine the probability of selecting a pink ball. Okay, so if there are 4 reds, that's really easy. That means there were 2 pinks, right? So what's the probability of getting a pink? It's simply going to be 2 over 6 times 1 over 5. 2 over 30. And the idea is there are 2 pink balls on first selection, and then I'm not putting it back, so now there is 1 more pink ball to choose out of the 5 left. And simplifying that on your calculator, you get 1 out of 15. Alright, question 37. Lydia borrows $465,000 at 8% per annum reducible interest. Interest is charged monthly and the monthly repayment is $3,550. The table shows the amount owing during the first 3 months. So we've got interest is charged monthly. So what do I have to do to this 8%? I need to convert it to a monthly rate. So that's 8 out of 12%. Okay, I need to now calculate what the interest, so it's already done the first 2 months. I need to find out what X is. So in order to get X, I need to determine what the interest and what the principal and interest is. So let's first find out what the interest is for month 3. I now owe $464,097. I'm going to be charge interest, which is 8 out of 12% for that single month. Okay, and that gives me $3,093.98. So that's that there. I'm then going to add that to, so this column here wants principal plus interest, so you just need to add this here and this here together. So 464,097 plus 3,098, and you get $467,195.98. And then I'm going to deduct the repayment. Now the repayment is the same every month. It's $3,550. So now it's this amount, take away $3,550. So it's $467,195.98 minus $3,550, and you get $463,640.98. Question 38. The following network shows the distance in meters between cabins A, B, C, D, E, F, and G in a holiday park. The park wants to run pipes between cabins using the existing road shown in the network. If piping costs $450 a meter, what is the minimum cost to run pipes to all the cabins? So if I want to connect pipes to all the cabins at a minimum cost, I'm going to have to find the minimum spanning tree, because the minimum spanning tree means I'm connecting all my vertices in the least possible way. So I like to use Prim's algorithm, but feel free to use whichever you're comfortable with. Once again, at the start of the video, I did say I recommend you having a colored pen that you can actually erase as a separate pen. Remember, this exam paper must be done in pen based on the instructions. But if you have that pen on the side that you're going to use for these questions, I highly recommend just for that pop of color, and in case you've made a mistake, you can rub it out and do it again. When you use a highlighter and then you've made an error and then you highlight on top, it gets really messy to understand, what's going on. So I'll just start with A, and the shortest distance coming out of vertex A is 7. Now, based on vertex A and D, the next shortest edge coming out of A or D is 10. Now, from A, B, and D, the next shortest length is 22. Now, I could use either AC or DC, and it doesn't matter. I'm just going to select AC, and I promise you it does not matter which one you go with. Now, based on A, B, C, D, those 4 vertices, what's the next shortest distance? And it's 4. And then those ones I can see 5 and then 2. Okay, again, it does not matter if I would have gone the other way, I still would have gotten that same shortest distance. And we need to add that all up together. Add that all up, you get 50 meters. And so for the cost, it's going to be 50 times 450, which is $22,500. In 2010, the city of Pythagoras used the equation P is equal to A, open bracket, 1.04 to the power of n to predict its future population. The city introduced a new policy to slow its population growth, and the new equation used was as such, so P is equal to A, open bracket, B to the power of n. In both equations, P is the predicted population and n is the number of years since 2010. So that means we're going to take 2010 as time is 0. Okay, in both equations, A is 3 million. What does A represent? Okay, so there's 3 million here, and both of them start at 3 million. So that means it tells me that it is the initial population. Explain why 1.05 is not a suitable estimate for the value of B. Now, for the second equation, we've got P is equal to A, open bracket, B to the power of n. Now, we're saying if B had the value of 1.05, that means it would look, that means it would look like this. And the reason why this does not satisfy is because I can see that for that second equation, it's actually it's flatter than the one before, okay? And this one here is 1.04. So if it was to be 1.05, so with this number here, if B was 1.05, it should actually be steeper, okay, not flatter. And so that's all you need to explain there. So we will say if B is equal to 1.05, it should speed up population growth. But in fact, it is slowing down. So B must be less than 1.04, not greater than 1.04. Part C, find the predicted population in 2030 if the new policy has not been introduced. So we are concerned with, just write these out, we're concerned with this one here. Okay, so I'm interested in P is equal to 3 million. Go back. 1.04 to the power of n. Now, when it's the year 2030, that's over here, I am not going to put in when n is equal to 2030. I'm going to put in when n is equal to 20 because I'm considering 2010 to be the beginning of time. So by the time I get to 2030, that's 20 years later. So I'm going to sub when n is equal to 20. What is the population? Plug it into your calculator and you should get 6,537,369 people. All right, part D, given that in the year 2030, the new policy predicts a population of 4,460,000, find the value of B. Okay, so once again, we know that for the second equation, so for the new policy, it goes by P is equal to 3 million, B to the power of n. Now in this case, because I'm looking at 2030, it's also when n is equal to 20. So it will be to the power of 20. So I want to try and get B on its own. Oh, but there's more information I can gather from here. When is the year 2030, which is when n is 20, I can gather that the population is 4,460,000. So let's sub that in. So now I've got 4,460,000 is equal to 3 million B to the power of 20. I will divide both sides by 3 million, and that leaves me with 446 over 300 is equal to B to the power of 20. To get B on its own, I'm going to have to find the 20th root of 446 over 300, which is equal to B. Okay, and last question of the exam. The first diagram shows the distance between towns in kilometres. Nick lives in Rochdale and arrives to work in Tradford. On each road shown on the first diagram, the speed limit is 50 kilometres an hour. Okay, a new orbital road is created as seen in the diagram below, in which the speed limit is 120 kilometres per hour. New roads connecting R to X, okay, so this one out here is the 120 kilometre per hour road, and then these little ones here are 60 kilometres an hour. All right. How much time will Nick save by driving to work on the orbital road compared to the quickest route he would have taken using the original roads? All right, so for the old route, let's find out what the shortest distance is. So it's going from Rochdale to Trafford. Is that correct? Rochdale works in Trafford, yeah. 20 kilometres. If I go down 5, 6, no, 5, 11, 7, no, 8, 7, 6, no, 8, 13, 9, no. Okay, so that's the shortest distance. So his old route's 20 kilometres away and he travels at 50 kilometres per hour. And so to determine how long that actually takes him, we know we can do the unitary method. Alright, so if I travel 50 kilometres per hour, let's find out 1 kilometre over how many minutes. So this is 50 kilometres over 60 minutes. Divide it by 50 and you get 1 kilometre every 1.2 minutes. So to get that for 20 kilometres, I'm going to times that by 20. So 20 kilometres is complete over 24 minutes. So his original route takes him 24 minutes. Okay, now for the new route, he's going to go R to X, and that is 3 kilometres long, and the travel is 60 kilometres an hour. So let's do the same thing for 60 kilometres an hour. 60 kilometers over 60 minutes. I mean, this is really straightforward. So 1 kilometer for every minute. So therefore, for a 3 kilometer journey, it's going to take him 3 minutes here. And then for and then from X to T, all right, it's traveling at 120 kilometers an hour, and we've got 22 kilometers to cover. So same thing, 120 kilometers per 60 minutes. This makes it 2 kilometers for every minute. And if I've got 22 kilometers to travel, that means from X to T is 22 times 2, which is 40. Oh, what have I done? Sorry. All right, and then for X to T, it's 22 kilometers. So therefore, it's going to take me 11 minutes to travel, okay? Because for every 2 kilometers, it takes me a minute. So for 22 kilometers, it'll take me 11 minutes to complete. Okay, and so therefore, for the new route, the total time is 3 minutes and 11 minutes, so 14 minutes. So the difference is 24, take away 14 minutes, 10 minutes is saved. Okay, great. What you need to be careful in Alright, and that's the end of the exam. Alright, and that's the end of the exam. Please, with extra time, always go back and double check your answers. The ones I really recommend you go back and check are your networks questions. It's always good to see them again, after having completed them 10 or 15 minutes later, just to make sure, you've got the right minimum lengths. Please go back and make sure all your units are in place. And most importantly, check the last sentence of every question. Did you actually round off to 3 significant figures? Is the answer to 1 decimal place as asked? Do you have the correct units? The units are the most important there. With extra time, please don't think that, I'm just going to hand in my exam. Use that as extra. It's a reward, really. You've got this extra time to go back and check and essentially do a question a second time. If you're attempting that question a second now, actually attempt it again. Okay, if you get the same answer, great, that means you're on the right track. If you get it wrong, I wouldn't actually panic. I'd actually feel good to think, okay, then I've actually stumbled across an error either in my second working out or my first, and it's giving me an opportunity to fix it. Okay, so instead of going to panic mode, think relieved, because if it was worth 2 or 3 marks, you're potentially saving yourself 2 or 3 marks. Okay, good luck. Stay tuned for more videos as I upload solutions to more past papers.